Warning: the following content contains mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. A former friend once told me that Halloween is the time of year to get scared. Well, seeing how Halloween is around the corner, I thought I'd open up to you about things that scare me and do it in the form of a top 10 video. I may look big and burly, but that doesn't mean I'm fearless. So for anyone who wants to know how big of a pussy I am, keep watching and please enjoy the Film Freak's Top 10 Things That Scare Me. Number 10. Public speaking. Whether I'm engaging in a conversation with others, directing people for shoots, or I'm in front of the camera expressing myself, when it comes to talking, I love it. But when it comes to doing something like public speaking, that's a different story. Public speaking has always been something that has scared me, ever since I was a kid and having to do presentations in school. The idea of having to stand and talk in front of a large audience and basically be the center of attention, sometimes I can barely go through with it. Now, my fear of public speaking doesn't concern having hundreds of people staring at me. It's more of a fear that I'm going to screw up in front of them and there's no way of taking back my blunder. Everyone will have seen and heard it, and if they find it funny, I don't know how I'd handle that. Number 9. Elevators. In my opinion, elevators are one of the scariest machines ever invented. Although their purpose is to save you from having to walk up and down hundreds of stairs, the concept of being in a confined space, sometimes with other people, and being pulled up and down a huge shaft, it really freaks me out. What scares me the most about elevators are two thoughts. One, a power outage occurring while I'm on one and I end up getting trapped inside. And two, all of the cables snapping because I exceeded the maximum weight limit and the elevator plummeting to the bottom. Luckily, I've never experienced those while on one, but it gives me the heebie-jeebies anytime I think about it. Number 8. Drowning. Swimming is one of my favorite summertime activities, but there's one thing I fear when getting in the water, and that is drowning. When I was a little kid, I had a near-death experience in a swimming pool. I was at my aunt and uncle's house when I jumped into the deep end of their pool. Completely unaware of what it's like being in the deep end and not knowing how to swim yet, I panicked and started to drown. Thankfully, my Uncle Steve was close by and jumped in to save me, but ever since then, drowning has always freaked me out. Now, drowning doesn't necessarily have to take place in the pool or the ocean. Even doing something as simple as drinking a bottle or a glass of water can happen. Sometimes if I'm drinking too fast, I feel like I'm drowning, so I have to make sure I pace myself and not get that feeling. Number 7. Needles. Whether I'm at the doctor's getting a flu shot, a blood test, or I'm at the dentist getting freezing, when it comes to needles, they make me feel uneasy. I've never been a big fan of needles, but sometimes we need things that involve needles, like medicine. The only thing that scares me about them is where I'm getting an injection and the pain I'll feel as I'm getting jabbed. I have a low pain tolerance, so even the smallest needle piercing me is like, oh god! And I hate when doctors ask me, "Okay, are you ready?" because they know how freaked out I am. A lot of times I feel like shouting, "Just jab me and get it over with!" But as soon as you know it, it is over with. So even though needles scare me, it's only for a few seconds. Number 6. Bats. For eons, bats have been feared as nefarious creatures that suck the life force out of humans in the dead of night. Though I don't think that about them, I fear bats for a different reason. Their appearance. Bats are terrifying to look at. They're rats with wings. Who wouldn't be freaked out by that? Sure, some species like red and fruit bats are cute looking, but other species are freaking ugly, like vampire bats. Holy crow. The way they roost also creeps me out, especially when there's a colony in a tree or inside a cave. Although bats are strongly secured upside down, I wouldn't want to be spelunking or something and have one accidentally fall on my head. Number 5. Bees. One thing I dread about late spring and summer are the arrival of bees. From the size of some of them to that buzzing sound they make in flight, bees scare the crap out of me every year, and I try extremely hard to avoid them every time I go outside. Now, I'm fully aware that when bees sting, it's a defense mechanism and they won't bother you if you don't bother them. But also aware of the fact that bee stings have been known to kill people, that's why I'm scared of them. Realistically, it takes 1,000 stings to kill a man and 500 for a child. But what about people who are highly allergic? All it takes is one and they're dead. Number 4. The dark. Something else that has scared me since childhood is the dark. But my fear doesn't concern darkness itself. It's more of what's in the dark. The dark can be an unnerving and mysterious thing. The fact that you can't detect who or what is around because you can't see really puts me on edge. And it doesn't help that I have a wild imagination, because anytime I'm in a dark space, I think of all kinds of things that could be lurking in the shadows. So to subside my fear, I make sure I leave lights on in rooms I know I'll be in. That way I know I'm okay and feel safe when I walk in. I also leave a flashlight by my bed. It seems silly, but it helps, especially if I have to get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom or something. I can take it with me and make sure I don't encounter something freaky along the way. Number 3, airplanes. When it comes to air travel, I can't do that either, because airplanes are another scary machine ever invented. Flying is one of the most terrifying things anybody can experience, and no matter how many times I hear people say, you're more safer in a plane than you are in a car, I think, no you're not. Things like taking off, turbulence, and even landing are some of the reasons why airplanes freak me out. But the biggest reason why I'm scared of them? Hollywood. Thanks to movies like Castaway, Final Destination, and TV shows like Lost, Hollywood's depictions of plane crashes have forever traumatized me. Anytime I get on a plane, I think at some point during the flight, the plane's gonna rip in half, passengers will get sucked out, and we're all gonna go down in a huge wreck. Safer than a car, my ass. Number 2, rodents. Whether it's an encounter with a mouse or a rat, I am dead set against rodents. Rodents scare the living hell out of me, and if I see them scurrying along the ground, I'll lose it. Rodents scare me for various reasons. Their size, speed, and overall appearance are a few of them, but also the fact that both mice and rats can invade homes, reproduce in large numbers, and carry diseases. What also scares me is how vicious they can be. Mice not so much, but rats more so. They have large teeth, and when they're angry or feel threatened, they'll lunge at you and bite you. So the next time you see a rodent and think, "Aw, how cute," run away as fast as you can, because looks can be deceiving. Now before I get into my number 1 pick, here are a few haunting honorable mentions. Coyotes. I like to go for a lot of walks, but with coyote attacks happening more and more these days, I'm afraid I'll come across a coyote while on my walk, especially how there's a few wilderness-like areas in my neighborhood. The blue screen of death on my laptop. With my work computer crashing last year, I've had to resort to my laptop for writing and editing videos, and each time I log on, I always fear I'll see the blue screen of death again and more of my work being lost forever. Ted Nugent running away. I'm always fearing for my cat Ted Nugent. He loves running around the house, but I'm scared he'll run out the front door and not come back. So I make sure whenever I have anybody over, before they're arriving and just as they're leaving, Ted's in another room. And when I'm coming home and walking in, he's nowhere near the front door. And the number 1 thing that scares me? Heights. Out of all the things I just talked about, none of them compare to how overwhelming heights are. Heights are the biggest thing I'm terrified of, and no matter how many times I try to face my fear, I just can't get over it. My fear of heights were first triggered when I was about 10 and while riding Mega Drop at the CNE. It looked like a super fun ride, but I was unaware of how high up you go before coming down. As soon as I was high enough where I could see all of the CNE, I didn't want to be on the ride anymore, and the second it dropped us, that was it. Me and heights became the worst of enemies. Now, theme park rides are not the only thing that get me freaked out about heights. Other things like looking out of windows on high rises, standing on balconies, ladders, and even step stools can also do it. Other than the feeling of being off the ground at a high altitude, what scares me the most about heights is that I'm going to fall to my death. So for that reason, I'd rather stay on the ground where I know it's more safe. And that concludes my top 10. What things scare you? Hit me up in the comment section below, and while you're at it, like and subscribe if you're digging my content. Every bit of support helps. Well, thank you so much again for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.